So here we are, week 10 of the 2020 season. You've got an NFC North matchup that potentially has some playoff implications, maybe. Might be stretching a little bit, but Lord only knows. But certainly a game with two opponents that on the surface seem to be heading in slightly different directions. I'm talking, of course, about the Minnesota Vikings and the Chicago Bears. Now, you look at the Minnesota Vikings, they got off to a really bad 1-5 start, and Vikings fans were talking about tanking and fire Zimmer, fire Spielman, and they probably largely are still talking like that, but you got to also take a little bit of a look at what they had early in the season, too. Like, 4 of their 5 losses came against the Packers, the Colts, the Titans, and the Seahawks. All potential playoff teams. So you got to sit there and say, yes, they were 1-5, and that's a really bad start, but that was a really tough start to the schedule, and certainly in terms of some of the marquee opponents that they faced. But they have won their last 2 games in a row, NFC North victories over Green Bay and Detroit. So this is a team maybe starting to right their ship a little bit. Yeah, they're only 3-5, which certainly puts them on the outside looking in when it comes to the playoff picture, but you start to string together a few victories all of a sudden. This is a team that made it to the divisional round last year. Crazier things can happen. And when you look at them offensively, you look at Dalvin Cook putting up a monster year in that Vikings backfield. Like, this is the guy I expected to see in the NFL coming out of Florida State in 2017's draft. And then Justin Jefferson, the first-round pick out of LSU, is having a monster rookie wide receiver season. I mean, when you look at what he's been able to do, the analytics folks are huge on him. The analytics are showing great for him. The numbers are showing great for him. So no matter what your metric, Justin Jefferson has been every bit as advertised so far and an absolute stud, and Vikings fans are saying Stephon Diggs. Who? Now, with that said, of course, Kirk Cousins has certainly struggled in this season in general. This is a guy that is on pace right now to not even throw for 4,000 yards. And when you're paying a guy as much money as you are Kirk Cousins, let's be clear, he's not getting absolute top of the heap quarterback money, but he's not getting bottom of the barrel money either. You should at least have some type of expectation of a guy being able to throw for over 4,000 yards and feel comfortable building your offense around that. And that's just not who Kirk Cousins is, and that's not the position you want to be in. So he hasn't had a great year. I think he has like 15 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, and if you're a Vikings fan, you go into this game on Monday night with some trepidation, certainly, because Kirk Cousins in particular has been really bad in a lot of primetime games in his history over the years. So it is what it is. And then you look at this team defensively. It's easy to just blame Kirk Cousins because he's the quarterback and he gets all the money. But this defense has sucked this year. They're 30th against the pass in terms of yardage allowed, 29th in the league in total yards allowed. There's not a good defensive unit. And even for some of those games earlier in the year, they had Yannick Ngakoue, and they've now since traded him away. So this is a team that for years their identity was built on the defensive side of the ball, and now their defense absolutely sucks. Like, no spin. Vikes fans got to know what I'm talking about here. You can't just blame the offense. You can't just blame Kirk Cousins. It goes way deeper and much more intensely on this team, on the defensive side of the ball, as to what a lot of their issues are. And when you look at the Bears, it's kind of opposite side of the story. Team got off to a 5-1 flukish BS type of start, exactly what hell I said they would. And looking at their last 3 games as they played more qualified, credible opponents like the Rams and the Saints and the Titans, they found ways to lose all 3 of those games. So now as a Bears fan, you had some of these clowns a few weeks ago were riding high like a 5-1. Oh, watch out, Green Bay. It's our year now. This is a team that's going to make a run. They ain't doing nothing. Even if they won 10 games this year, they're not doing anything. And that's the dumbest type of season to have of all. This team is exactly who I thought they were, who I told you they were, and I'm not letting them off the hook, and I'm sure as hell not letting any of you off the hook, because this offense is still hot garbage. 5 of their 8 games this year, they've managed to score under 20 points. That's not even saying, well, that's not a great or an elite offense. That's not even a professional offense at this point. 62.5% of their games this year, they can't even score 20 damn points. Like, even in the 80s, they were able to do that. Give me a damn break. They can't run the ball. 32nd in the league in rushing yards per game. And, oh, by the way, David Montgomery's out on Monday night. Yeehaw! Maybe we'll get Lamar Miller activated from the practice squad so we can watch carries be vultured away from him by Ryan Nall and Cordell Patterson. Oh, that's going to be a formula for success. Ugh. Oh, God. And even when you look at some of the other games where they've scored some points, it's the comebacks against the Detroits and the Atlantas when those other teams were in the lead in the fourth quarter, playing prevent defense, which prevents you to win. Like they were playing against a couple of choke job organizations in Detroit and Atlanta, so you don't give them that much credit for it. And even when you look at last week's game, playing the Titans, you say, they scored 17 points. It's a one-touchdown game. But yeah, 2 of those touchdowns came in garbage time, effectively. Like Titans were already up 24-3 in the fourth quarter. There's another 3 quarters where the Bears managed to score a point per quarter. Like, give me a fucking break here. This offense stinks. They can't run the ball. You get nothing consistently when it matters in the passing game. Little explosiveness. Play calling, play design is just so brutal and so awful. I mean, now all of a sudden you've got Matt Nagy's talking about he's giving up play calling duties to Bill Lazor. 1, I don't even know if I fully believe that. 2, let's say, to extend the benefit of the doubt here, cool. At least Matt Nagy knows that he's the problem with the play calling. Except 3, now you're going to Bill Lazor, who doesn't exactly himself have a great resume when it comes to being a shot caller and play caller as an offensive coordinator in the NFL. So don't expect to get all giggly tits about this, although Bears fans, the first thing they might see any glimmer of hope of anything positive coming on Monday night. They're going to be like, he's just changing everything, and they don't change shit. Your quarterback stinks. You have no running game. The offensive line is atrocious. Coordinator, play caller can only fix but so much of that. And when you look at them defensively, it's a good enough unit to compete, but they're not dominant enough for what the Bears need. And that's just a reality. And when you look at what the Bears have invested, both in terms of financial resources and draft pick capital, this unit needs to be best in the league elite. And they're not. They're not. They're more of a top 10 unit, which is good, very good, but they're not elite. And Bears fans need to wake up. It's not 2018. Chuck Pagano's your defensive coordinator now, not Vic Fangio. And there is a difference, and there is a sizable difference in the two. This is not the top 3 to 5 unit that you're expecting, not the top 3 to 5 unit that they've invested in or paid for. So yes, there is still some blame to go on the defensive side of the ball because they're not playing up to standards, period. Obviously, the overwhelming share goes to the offensive side of the ball, but it is a team game at the end of the day. And when you have invested as much as this organization has, foolishly, because they're idiots, running themselves like it's still the 1960s, defense wins championships. No, a-holes, it doesn't anymore. Get over it. Catch up with the times. The reality is you can start to see some of the suckage from the offense carrying over to this defensive unit. And they have enough talent to still kind of overcome it, but they're not as dominant as they need to be. And that's just a reality. Like, you can get mad at me for saying this defense is not elite, but they're not. Stop pretending like they are. They're underperforming, period. So now you head into this Monday night matchup, 2 teams heading in potentially in somewhat different directions. So it's a big game for both. Big game in the NFC North, and could potentially be the end of the season for both of these teams if they lose it. When you look at the Vikings, some of their keys to success for victory come Monday night. You got to let Dalvin cook. Get him the ball. The Bears did all right against Derrick Henry last week, that is for sure. But, that was 1 week. They've had some games where they've struggled to stop opposing running backs. Let Dalvin cook. Dalvin Cook is a monster. He's having a monster year. The Minnesota Vikings need to understand that, Dalvin can have a big day and he can cook against this team, so let him cook. And then find ways to get Jefferson and Thielen matched up in the slot, or more specifically on buster screen, because if they do, they're going to be able to exploit that matchup. They will be able to hit some big plays off of that. So figuring out ways from a lineup standpoint to get creative to where they can create some mismatches and get one or both of those guys at different times during the game on buster screen as much as they possibly can is going to make a big difference. But it might not matter that much if the Bears continue to play the soft off-man coverage that they have been. If Irv Smith plays, they need to get him involved. The Bears struggle to defend tight ends. A lot of teams do. Bears are certainly one of them. Get Irv Smith involved. His athleticism from that position could add another element to this Vikings passing game and help out Kirk Cousins and could cause some real trouble for the Bears. And then defensively, there is no reason to sit back and play it safe here. Bring the heat and force the Bears O-line to step up. Force them to hold up. Blitz. Bring the heat. Bring pressure. Take some gambles. Take some chances if you're the Vikings defense. Get after it. Because if you do, the Bears will be shot. And then for the Bears, they got to find ways to manufacture some creative and vertical touches for Darnell Mooney. One thing that's really just preposterous to me, easy for me to say on a Saturday, is how Matt Nagy consistently failed to demonstrate an ability of understanding a basic truth when it comes to football. Sometimes your scheme doesn't matter. Sometimes just get the damn ball in your best players' hands and let them make plays. And far too often, like a nincompoop, he failed to do so. If you are actually in charge of the play calling, Bill Lazor, on Monday night, then one thing that you should be doing is trying to figure out ways to manufacture creative touches for Darnell Mooney. You need to figure out ways to manufacture shots down the field to Darnell Mooney, period. Because he's the one receiver that you have in that lineup that could be a bit of a game breaker, could be a bit of a true difference maker, real explosive threat. So find ways to get him going and get him involved. No more of these 3-4 target jobs. Utilize more dual tight end sets with Jimmy Graham and Cole Kmet. Especially once you get into the red zone. There's nothing against the rules saying you can't have both of them on the field at the same time. The Bears struggle to match up against tight ends. Well, Minnesota and a lot of other teams do too. So get these guys on linebackers or safeties and reap the benefits of it. Let's get some more dual tight end looks. You took Cole Kmet in the second fucking round. Time to take the kid gloves off, see what the hell he can do. And you have to force Cousins to beat you. You got to stop Dalvin Cook. Don't let Dalvin cook if you're the Bears defense, because he will. And if you let him do that, you're in trouble. You might have to stuff the box. You might have to take your chances and say, hey, I want to take my chances on Kirk Cousins being really bad in prime time again. That might be what I got to take my chances on, because I do not want Dalvin Cook to beat me. And then defensively, admittedly, this is one of these games, the Bears have lost 3 in a row now. You can talk about scheme and you can talk about any number of things, but the reality is you need your superstars, your big star, big money guys to play like that in this spotlight on Monday night. That means you need huge games from guys like Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks, Kyle Fuller, Eddie Jackson, period. They're supposed to be the best on your team. They're supposed to be the stars, the foundation pieces, the building blocks of your defense and your entire squad. Then all the scheme and all the other matchups and all the other crap combined, get rid of all of your excuses about holding and everything else. These guys need to exert their will. They need to be the streak stoppers here. This team has lost 3 in a row. If you want to have a chance this season, you want to chase this foolish playoff spot, then you must win this game on Monday night, period. And you need your defensive stars to have an impact. How many games have you watched of the Bears this year where you're like, oh, Khalil Mack got a sack, but he didn't really feel like a presence of the game, or Akeem Hicks got a sack, but he didn't really feel like that much of a presence in the game. These are the spots that you need your big money guys to step up. And sure as hell it would be nice to see Robert Quinn do something at some point in time. Christ almighty. Now, a lot of Bears fans are going to sit there and have trepidation about this game, but also have some hope because they're going to say, well, Kirk Cousins is terrible on Monday night. But didn't he beat Seattle on Monday night last year? Or am I remembering incorrectly? Or was that Sunday night? Either way, primetime game. And then as far as the Bear fans, you trust Matt Nagy in primetime? We just saw them on Monday night a few weeks ago, and they got torched by the Rams. What's the reason for arrogance here or confidence? These are 2 teams heading to me in different directions. When I look at this matchup, if you're a Bears fan and you want to knock Kirk Cousins, look in the mirror. If you're a Vikings fan and you want to knock Nick Foles, I'd say, kind of look in the mirror. But as far as this game goes, it's the last game before the Bears bye. I think they've been in a bad way, a lot of bad momentum going on. I think the Vikings have a little bit of confidence here. I like the Vikings in this matchup. Give me Minnesota 24-20. I have no faith or belief in this Bears team. And until proven otherwise, neither should any of you Bears fans, period.